Hello. We have saved the best for last. The concluding panel of SB8 is about getting smart and going big. Did you know that there are only 8,829 days left until the year 2050? 8,829 days. I remember when it was 9,000 days, not that long ago. And I think about the last 21 years and all the things we were imagining and wishing for, and here we are. And if I've learned anything, I've learned about the cost of time, that every day we do something or fail to do something matters and adds up. I've never felt more optimistic about the physics of flourishing, the possibilities of biotechnology, but I've never been more burdened with all these sorts of puzzles and challenges that are keeping us from advancing the tools, keeping us from advancing the economics, keeping us from advancing the culture soon enough to matter. And so I'm incredibly grateful we've got leaders and experts from a diversity of institutional perspectives and experiences to bring some thoughts to this puzzle. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a series of 8-minute talks from each of our principals, and then we'll get into a spicy discussion. Wataru, could I ask you to start us off?
Yep. Hi, my name is Wataru Mizunashi. Thank you very much for organizer giving me a great opportunity to this wonderful conference. So my talk is not science and technology, but it is for approach to technology, make technology to social implementation or commercialization. So it's a busy slide, but I have summarized one slide my today's talks. I'm from Mitsubishi Chemical, but today I am here as a fellow of NEDO. NEDO is a Japanese governmental funding agency, and I take a key message. Today's key message is this red characters. So our target is worthwhile to take on challenge because bioeconomy is expected to contribute to solving environmental and food and health issues, as well as promoting a circular economy and sustainable economic growth. It is important to economic growth. And so I prefer to use the word bioeconomy, but synthetic biology is a core element of bioeconomy. That's why I use bioeconomy. And also, Japanese government formulated biostrategy 2019, and also revised bioeconomy strategy last year. And next sentence is challenge and opportunity. So we have several targets: pharmaceutical and primary production and biomanufacturing. So pharmaceutical field is quite important, and also established industrial ecosystem. It's a good opportunity, but there are tough competition, and it needs development of efficient biopharma or biologics production, and also new modality with efficacy and advanced sensor for health data and human care. And the primary production is quite important for food production, and development of environmentally friendly and efficient food production with safety is quite important. And third is biomanufacturing, especially industrial chemicals. So it important to transformation from fossil oil-based society or system to renewable resources systems. It's quite challenging, but it is important to future environment or future peoples. So, for example, plastic invented 200 years ago and fully adapted to fossil oil-based system. So, important thing is how to shorten the time to renewable resources systems. So it's a good challenge. And the other important thing is public-private partnership. I want to emphasize bring industry here. So not only academic discussion, but also industry. With the industry, so it is important to social implementation. And for example, Japanese government action, Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry has established 2 big fund programs for especially biomanufacturing. And total size of about 3.5 billion US dollar. So it is important to properly use government support. So I will introduce Japanese action as examples, the following slide. So it's quite a busy slide, but this is a summary of the bioeconomy strategy in Japan. So if you're interested, so you can find Japan's Cabinet Office homepage. And point is, these 2 things, as I said before, so target is worthwhile to challenge. And there are 3 targets here. So 3 targets is including biomanufacturing is to make bio-based products from using renewable resources to use biofoundry and biorefinery, and alternatives of plastics from the fossil oil, and the primary production and healthcare. So Japanese government set a KPI as by 2030, 100 trillion Japanese yen, so to make a market. And the action of the Japanese, so METI, through the NEDO project, we have established biofoundries. I mean, the biofoundries is depending on the stream of the R&D, from the upstream of the R&D to make a industrial engineered cell, and the middle of downstream is a scale up. So we have a functionalized biofoundry in Kobe and Osaka area for upstream and the middle stream. And downstream is located in Chiba Prefecture for scale-up plant. And from the Kobe University, spun off startups named Bacchus Bio in Kobe. And we have 2 big fund program. One is a Green Innovation Fund. This concept is to use carbon dioxide as a feedstock. And the second is a Biomanufacturing Revolution Fund. And the concept is unused material feedstocks for various materials. It's an example of the project. So I want to emphasize this slide to bring a big company and startups and academias to make teams for established program. This is also Biomanufacturing Evolution Fund. It's also big company and startups. So lastly, so this month, World Economic Forum released this kind of 10 emerging technology solutions for planetary health. I was so impressed from this report.
Right.
Some of some of these targets emerging technology, including synthetic biology. So it is important to discuss this kind of new technologies for how to achieve this type of technologies. So that is, thank you very much for kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Wataru-san. Chantal, would you be willing to share your perspective from BGI?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm from BGI Research. My name is Chantal Shen. And it's been a very great pleasure to be here, to be invited here to tell about my perspective from the technical part. So just this morning, in the morning session, Patrick Kai, who was my PhD supervisor, shared with you the SB8.0 East Genome Project, which I've been deeply engaged, and I've been part of this project since the early stage through all the way till its completion. And during this whole journey, it actually gave me the sense that technology is the foundation. It really been the most important factors to let us achieve the goal to get smart and go big. But the story here is when you build a synthetic yeast genome back then, the synthetic yeast genome, the chromosomes need a lot of different synthetic gene fragments. And back then, we don't really have company like Twist to do all the heavy lifting for us. So we need to figure out how to use the oligo pools to do gene assembling so we can actually pushing forward the project. But imagine you need to fish out only a few different oligos from the pool with the diversity probably over 100,000 or even million scale. It's really challenging, and it's a nightmare. So that makes me rethink the question, are there alternative approaches to make the genes more feasible and in high throughput way and in good quality? So, and then we next comprehensively compare the advantage and disadvantage with the first generation column-based technology with the high throughput chip-based technology. And we came up with a solution that we can actually combine the two different approaches. So, after about 8 years efforts, and we developed this technology called MMPS, a microchip-based massive in parallel synthesis technology. And here on the screen, the video actually showing a very simple core concept of this technology. And we also demonstrate the feasibility of the technology by 2 applications that I will explain a little bit later. It's worth mentioning that MMPS actually eliminates the need for us to compromise between throughput and yield. So what does that mean? Basically, for traditional column-based technology and high throughput array-based technology, they have very clear differences in the throughput and the yield. But from the application standpoint, actually for different applications, if they can both reach requirements for the throughput and the yield, that could lead to a more feasible way to cost effectiveness and also batch-to-batch consistency. And then you can see from here, MMPS can actually mostly cover most of the requirements for the broader application that requires both throughput and yield. So the first application we test in our hand is to do gene assembling, of course. So here actually shows the using the array-based technology, using the oligo pool, you basically at least need 5 steps to make it work. And that's the ideal concept. However, because now with MMPS, we actually can individually control each of the DNA products. So that makes us only need 2 steps to do all the gene assembling. And because we greatly simplify the whole process, so we even make it the whole automation the process to further improve the cost effectiveness. And by this whole process, we first test with 1 kb to 3 kb. And you can see from here, at 1 to 2 kb, we can have a successful rate with 1 part assembling over 90%. And even with 3 kb, we can still secure over 75% of the success rate. And then we further push the limit and even tried, we can actually achieve 10 kb, 1 part assembling. So that's giving an example for how we can make gene more simpler to do that. And another example that we use MMPS trying to explore into the protein study to support the protein related study. And here is work that being led with our collaborator Ben Leonard from CRG. And in this project, we use MMPS to build the NNK mutant library for over 1,200 protein human domains. And in this way, after we construct the library and then they tested and screened the whole library, and from here you can see our technology further again demonstrate the performance with the very good coverage, with very good amino acid ratio, and also with side-to-side uniformity. So here I only have a few examples to show how important technology it is. But of course, as the former speaker mentioned, it's not just about technology. It also involves with the standardization, with the coordinative plan, development with the upstream and downstream industrial chain, with also regulation, with policies. And I'm happy to dive deeper to share more of my perspective in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Meichun, we'd be most grateful for your perspective from Singapore.
Right. Thank you, Drew. All right. Okay, I guess as the slides are being put up, hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Meichun. I'm from the Singapore Economic Development Board. So we are a government agency. Right, so I think all of us took a different, all the panelists took a different take, on how to approach this question of going big, right? So for me, what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing about why Singapore is interested in bioeconomy, as well as what we are doing in this space, right? So first, a bit of an introduction about the organization I'm from, the Singapore Economic Development Board, the EDB for short. So we are a government agency, and we are in charge of creating sustainable economic growth for Singapore, as well as good job opportunities for the people in Singapore. So we do this by looking at a wide range of different sectors. So we oversee key manufacturing as well as export-oriented sectors across Singapore. Right, so we partner very closely with companies as well to support their investments into new innovation, production, and supply chain activities. So talking about manufacturing, right, so the energy and chemical sector is actually one of the key sectors, key manufacturing sectors that we look at. And usually when I show this slide, it comes as quite a surprise to most people because people think of Singapore as a finance, professional services hub, and they're actually quite surprised that manufacturing contributes about 20% of our GDP, right? So last year it came out a bit slightly lower at 17%. Right, and actually the second highest contributor for manufacturing was the energy and chemical sector. So in Singapore, we have quite diverse, quite a large, rich ecosystem for energy and chemicals. We have the refineries, the crackers, the petrochemicals, and down to the specialty chemicals. Right, and with this range of companies, it actually makes us one of the top 10 chemical exporters globally. Right, so Singapore, as a small country, we are very dependent on the global economy, on the global trade, and we need to make sure that we stay relevant to the global community. So in the energy and chemical sector, we see that this sector globally is going through a green transition, right? Companies are investing more into sustainability, into decarbonization, and in Singapore, to ensure that our industry continues to remain competitive, we have to make some investments in this area as well. So there's a lot of investments into decarbonization in Singapore, right, in terms of bringing in, the availability of renewable energy, in terms of investing in new technologies like carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And also, we are pursuing bioeconomy, right? So how do we define bioeconomy? So we see bioeconomy as products that come from two categories. So one is products that are produced through traditional chemical synthesis, but using bio-based raw materials. So that's one. And then the other is products that are produced through synthetic biology or biotechnology. Right. So using bio ingredients to produce products is not a new thing, right? So why is Singapore looking in it now, and why are we double clicking into this topic now? Right, so we are doing this because we see certain developments, 3 different developments, right, which I will go through one by one. So one is in terms of regulations, right? So regulations for in the area of biofuels. So globally, we see countries like the EU going into the renewable energy directive. US has that renewable fuel standard. All of this is actually pushing for more biofuels. Right, and this is making large oil majors, BP, Chevron, Shell, everyone is investing into new biofuels projects. In Singapore, Neste actually has its largest biorefinery doing sustainable aviation fuel and biodiesel production out of Singapore. Right, and it's not just in the biofuel space, right? So for biofuels, what we are seeing is that all these investments into biomanufacturing is actually creating more advances in terms of the supply chain, in terms of core technology, like microbial engineering, in terms of purification. All these can also be used for the production of other bio-based products. Right? And beyond biofuels, we also see regulations in other areas. So for example, in Europe, different countries are talking about reducing the use of chemical pesticides. Right? And in the US, there was just the ban on the synthetic dyes. Right? So all these actually create demand for new bio alternatives. Right, and so this regulation-led, push is actually creating more demand for this industry. And we are starting to see companies, right, actually starting to strategically hedge by using drop-in chemicals. So this is actually very interesting. So we see brand owners like Lululemon, right, investing into biotechnology companies, startups, to build capabilities in this area. Not just Lululemon, other companies like Lycra, they're also, using for their spandex clothing, they're actually using BDO, butanediol. So a lot of these brand owners are actually paving the way in creating demand for all these products, right? And we are starting to see companies producers actually make big investments into creating the supply for some of these products. So AP Moller, they actually made a 1.5 billion euro investment into producing, into their new venture to produce fossil-free polypropylene as well as polyethylene. Right, so we see a lot of these large investments that companies are going into. And I guess the last development is something that is quite exciting for me actually. Right, so we see that beyond replacing chemicals, petrochemicals, based chemicals, right? Companies are actually going one step further to use biotechnology to develop new products that actually have even greater performance, right, than their fossil-based alternatives. So one example is Evonik's rhamnolipids. So it's a class of biosurfactants that has excellent foaming properties, and they are very mild on the skin. And this is actually already used commercially in products like Unilever's hand dishwashing liquid, in CeraVe's facial cleansers, etc. So a lot of this products is already in the commercial market, right? So another example, so there are many companies, many startups actually going to this field. And one of the examples from Germany, M-Silk. So they produce this synthetic spider silk, which is actually even stronger than normal spider silk. And now it's being used in luxury textiles. So there's a lot of all these examples, which makes me very excited, actually, about the bioeconomy potential. Right, so I shared a lot in the previous slide, but just a summary. So we see it as a growing opportunity because we see demand picking up and supply also picking up. So demand is being driven by regulations, increasing demand from customers for sustainability as well as high-performance products. And on the supply side, producers are starting to see the opportunity, recognizing the customer demand, the market demand, and they're committing capital into creating more facilities to produce such products. And in Singapore, we feel that it's actually the best, it's a very good place for companies to innovate in this space. Right, we have a very business-friendly environment, a world-class workforce, connectivity, a strong innovation ecosystem, and for bioeconomy to really realize its potential, it's all about people coming together, the technology providers, the end customers coming together to innovate on new solutions, and Singapore is a very good place for that to happen. So we've already started making strategic bets into R&D in Singapore across the whole biotechnology value chain. In strain discovery, strain engineering, process technology, scale-up. There are multiple entities in Singapore that can partner with companies to build up technologies and co-innovate together. Right? For example, for strain discovery, we have the Natural Product Library, which has more than 200,000 strains. Right? And this is actually one of the largest biodiversity collection in the world. Right? We have the Singapore Institute of Food and Biotechnology Innovation, SIFBI, right, which is very strong in strain engineering as well as the downstream processing. For scale-up, we have the Scale-up Bio in Singapore, which is a JV between ADM as well as Singapore entity that can support companies on their scale-up processes. So we welcome companies to come and leverage this ecosystem for more developments. So companies are already starting to. So all this development in Singapore is not going unnoticed by companies. So companies are making investments to use Singapore as a location for new bioproducts, so bioproducts that use traditional chemistry but that come from bio-based raw materials. So Arkema is using castor oil to produce PA11 in Singapore. And I mentioned the Nestle example earlier. So Nestle is using used cooking oil and animal fats to do sustainable aviation production in Singapore. And some other companies are also starting to invest in the biotechnology space. So Wilma, a leading agro-commodities company, they actually partnered with the National University of Singapore, right, on an innovation corporate lab to develop new industrial enzymes and biochemicals. And of course, IFF, another a flavors and fragrance company, is also doing some of these industrial enzymes production out of Singapore. So since I talked a lot about this, just to sum up for the companies, right, this is how EDB can work with companies to support bioeconomy or biotechnology investments. So if any companies out there keen to invest in Singapore, we can have a conversation after this as well. So I come to the end of my presentation and looking forward to the discussion that follows.
Thank you. Meichun, maybe I could start with you, and I'll just come back in order, reverse order. One of the things I find so powerful and innovative about Singapore is its clarity around goals, all of nation goals. The fact that 20% of the economy, GDP, is onshore manufacturing, and that's important, you want to keep that. I believe, I'm not sure if it's still true, but I believe Singapore wishes to be net zero on carbon by 2050. Those are puzzles, right? If you just add more manufacturing in a conventional sense, you're going to have more carbon emissions, maybe, right? But you want to do more manufacturing, but somehow we got to do this differently. We've got to take the things we heard in the previous session and bring them into reality soon enough to matter. So my question is, in the spirit of our discussion, the theme of our panel, which is get smart and go big, from your perspective, are we smart enough yet? And how would we know? And are we ready to go big or not soon enough to matter? So for example, I look at Jurong Island, a significant resource for manufacturing and fossil refining. If Jurong Island had to be different and economically viable at scale by 2050, that would mean whatever the new things are have to be ready to go by 2035 and proven and ready to go with, like, so we can have confidence. So how are you viewing and evaluating whether or not we're smart enough and we're ready to go? Like, are we going to get this done? Are we going to get to the finish line? And it seems like you have all the ingredients. Without a doubt, you've got the ecosystem, the architecture, but how are you evaluating how's it going? And if we need to do more, how could we do a good job on that?
So those are very big questions. So let me try to break it down.
Welcome to Go Big. Yeah.
Right. Okay, yes, in spirit of this discussion, right? So, I mean, I think the immediate response I have is that for all these to happen, there needs to be very strong collaboration, right? Across the industry, with the government, with academia. Everyone needs to work together for this to happen. So in Singapore, we are very clear that we want to decarbonize by 2050, right? So this is, we want to be net zero by 2050, and this is a goal that we are committed to. there's a lot of different things that we are using to make this happen, right? So in terms of regulatory levers, so we actually do have carbon tax in Singapore, right, to provide the impetus for companies to decarbonize. And we've also mentioned on multiple platforms, actually, that this carbon tax that we collect, actually, we are planning to reinvest it into the industry. So for companies that want to do decarbonization projects, we're very happy to deploy this capital back to support decarbonization projects. So like you mentioned, we already have a lot of manufacturing activities in Singapore. Right. And we're partnering very closely with companies to see how we can work with them to decarbonize, right, in terms of having more efficient processes, how we can avail some of this decarbonization technology deployment across their shop floors. So there's a lot of collaborations there with the companies for deployment, and in terms of the technology as well. So a lot of technology still needs to be developed, right? So for example, on the biotechnology side, right, the cost of biomanufacturing still remains very high. Right. For a variety of different reasons, right? So in terms of biotechnology, downstream processing, that's where many companies still struggle, right? So a lot of development needs to be done on that front, downstream processing, and in terms of scale up, right? So we're partnering a lot with companies to see how, with the research institutes and the companies to see how we can leverage technology to address some of these gaps, right? But I guess I'm speaking a lot, but in total, what I'm trying to say is that for all this to happen, for us to achieve our goals, it needs to be a joint effort, right?
Yeah. Can I ask two? Sure. Are there key metrics that are, and this will set up something for you? Are there key metrics that you're tracking? So, for example, do you track the amount of money it takes to make a kilogram of a bioproduct? And do you have statistics like that for Singapore, Japan, China, Oklahoma, Germany? Is that something you're paying attention? Because I would agree with you, we have to improve the economics of biomanufacturing if we wish to get more of what we need to be biomade in a way that's economically viable. So I'm curious if you've yet discovered these key metrics that we can use to be smart in figuring out where we need to push the technology, but also how we deploy the money, or is that still an opportunity? And then another quick follow-up question. Forgive me. I think about what we heard from String Bio just a moment ago, and what's interesting to me about that example is you can take in a fossil input, methane, and make something that's more valuable than a kilowatt hour of electricity, potentially. And if you could do that, then you could access the streams of capital that are coming from the gas and oil suppliers, because presumably you could enable them to make more money. Are you seeing that possibility? Is that something we could nudge or help advance in any strategic way?
Again, multiple questions packed into into one question, right? So
maybe hold the microphone a little closer.
Sorry. Test.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I think your first question was on matrix, right? Whether we are tracking certain matrix.
Yeah.
So across this whole decarbonization is a big topic, right? There are certain goals that we have, right, in terms of our renewable energy imports. So for biotechnology, it's a very energy-intensive process, right? And you need green energy, right, to make it a fully sustainable process. So in Singapore, as a small country, we don't have that much space for, say, wind farms, solar farms, etc. But what we can do is to import in from the region. So we actually have goals of how much renewable energy we want to import in from the region into Singapore. So we want 6 gigawatts in the next few years, right? And this will correspond to about 30 to 40% of our energy mix in Singapore. So we have this kind of goals that we're working towards, right? Tracking it to see how we can achieve what we want to achieve. Right, in terms of costs, I spoke a bit about how cost is still expensive for biomanufacturing. So we hear a lot of stats from companies on how say downstream processing, it's 3 times the cost of the upstream part, right? So there's all this, figures that we note, and we're trying to see how we can partner with companies to bring some of this cost down.
Thank you. Chantal, if we could go to you, I remember one of my first interactions with BGI was when you could get your genome sequenced, a human genome sequenced, I could get for less than $1,000. Remember that? And my question is, what are you going to make happen, or what are you wishing for with respect to synthesis? Why can't I get a yeast genome built in 12 minutes for $100? or something like that. How are you thinking about getting smart with respect to technology development? What was needed for you to organize resources within BGI to develop what you showed us today? But how's that going, and how far do you think we can go, how quickly, and what's needed?
I think in BGI we really value the fundamental technology, the role that it can play to really support very diverse different applications. And if we can make sequencing so cheap, basically you can really do a lot of different diverse applications, not just in the hospital or in the research institute. So I think the scalability and cost effectiveness, I think, is the very key factors that we need to consider to develop the technology itself. And apart from that, I think what for SynBio is really important for SynBio to really get smart and go big, especially go big, is if these technology or the whole process can be standardized. Because when we look at early stage for SynBio, I see a lot of pioneers, including you, actually putting a lot of efforts and committed to make the standardized framework for synthetic biology, including the biological parts standardization, how to explore the uniform way to categorize them. And another way is how to develop the standard assembling methods that can make everyone have the same language. So I think these are very important, and because SynBio, the core for SynBio is engineering. So if you can really engineer and make everyone can engineer, I think the standardization is really important. But unfortunately, I think recently when we see most of the breakthroughs are from technology or even expanding into different applications. But I think for the progress for standardization actually being slightly lag behind. So that, I think, is really crucial. And also when we take a quick look for the information technology as example, a big success from that is actually came from the early establishment of the standardization, including such as TCP/IP agreement, HTTP. So these really enabled from different systems that it can go across, with the same language, and it also enabled the mass production and global expansion into the world for the internet. So this, I think, is really great example for SynBio to learn from. And another thing, we are also trying to do that. For example, I mentioned DNA synthesis today in the afternoon. And one thing that we are trying to do is just last year, we put the standardized evaluation process for oligo has been expanded to gene and genomes. And it is described in the ISO standard in the part 2 session to describe that. And another effort that we are doing is we established a working group under the ISO TC 276, the biotechnology. And then we have focused on the nucleic acid-based and protein-based bio device, which I think we are focusing on that and trying to develop a series of standards that can support, I guess, many different applications and the technical part for SynBio.
If you had to guess, how much did it cost to build Yeast 2.0? Or maybe you know.
I don't know. Probably Patrick has the answer. Over many, I don't know, millions dollars. But mostly is the time we've been consuming is over 12 years. And our recent technology breakthrough, we are also trying to really transform the technology to support more different applications. And we set a goal to make that is we want to rebuild the yeast genome again from scratch. But this time, we don't want to wait another decade, which we want to try to finish that in 2 years. That's the goal. If we can make it, I guess from the technical part, we are more confident to really use the technology to support even broader, even more bold, creations to the application.
So you have a roadmap inside, like let's get better, let's be able to do this in 2 years, 2 months, 2 weeks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. One of the things I used to think about technical standards is that they were about technology, and of course they are, but now I think they're really about people wanting to work together, and mostly people don't want to work together. It's only when people are unreasonable, that they have a dream or some disaster that forces people to work together, do you get people to work together. And so I'm very curious about how we might imagine a biotechnology future that forces us to work together. David Clark and colleagues at the Internet Engineering Task Force had an unreasonable dream about communication resilience, and they forced things to be made to work. I wish for a biological network, a bionet, that would let us share DNA code and download and grow where we need. But if whatever the dream is not held together, there probably won't be, there'll be standards, but they won't be transformative. I have a question for you, Wataru. How do you get, I'm not sure how to ask the question, so let me try a couple different ways. How do you get to $3.5 billion equivalent? You're talking about this government-wide push. How do you know that's the right number? Why isn't it 35 billion? I think we got more work to do. Or that sounds like too much. Why isn't it 300 million? And how do you know how it's going? How would you know whether or not it's working? Can you share a little bit about like how does that happen, and how do we know if that's the right size and is going well or not?
Okay, thank you very much for asking. But I would like to come back to previous questions regarding metrics. So metrics based on money is quite important, easy to understand. And I think also important to metrics based on carbon footprint and also environment footprint. So at this moment, rare discussion about such things. So it is important to discuss, especially environment footprint for synthetic biology or bioeconomy. So it's my opinion. And come back to your question. So it is important to bind national strategy. So that's why we are talking about policymakers to make a strategy. And how to output or outreach such things. So to formulate some of the members, academia and industry, to discuss about how to make such things. And finally, so government decided to fund, but government also expected more investment from companies. So it's some kind of kickstart to make a success story or success examples. So government expect the follower to see such success examples. So that is our story. But at this moment, we need to hear the good result from project. That it's a tough time to.
Things need to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ongoing, not bad thing, but ongoing project is to need to wait the result.
Thank you for teaching us. I want to come back to your first comment about metrics. You mentioned the environment and ecology. There was an important meeting not that long ago in Dubai. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature had their World Conservation Congress. And it was 20 or 30,000 people discussing biodiversity conservation, which is one metric of how nature is doing. And they had a vote on motions regarding governance of synthetic biology. One motion had been developed over the last 12 years with a lot of hard work and not without controversy made the following suggestion. We should allow for synthetic biology to help with biodiversity conservation on a case-by-case basis and being cautious. But we should be able to try because we have a crisis of biodiversity loss. And then there was a competing motion that surfaced over the last 6 months from civil society organizations and others who were concerned about synthetic biology. And the competing motion called for a moratorium on the use of synthetic biology for purposes of biodiversity conservation. I'm paraphrasing, but just to get the point across. The first motion, based on the precautionary principle, but allowing things to go forward on a case-by-case basis, I understand was passed at the Congress with about 80% approval, I think. Whereas the competing motion calling for a moratorium was defeated by 1 vote. That doesn't mean it's done. What that means is there's now a window between today and the next World Conservation Congress to show progress, responsibility, all the things that people need to see in order to feel like better things are happening. So I'm really grateful for you bringing up that other complementary metric that we should be thinking about when we're talking about going big or getting smart. I want to invite the room to ask our panel any questions you might have. And do we have the throw cube? We do. We have a microphone. And we have a question up front. Yeah.
Thanks so much for pulling this panel together. It's very interesting to see you are from Stanford, United States, and all the panelists from Singapore, Japan, China. So it's quite a global environment now. And actually, I initially come from the semiconductor industry, and now I'm looking into life science. So actually, in the past few years, I think the most important thing has been happening is because of the United States, lots of competition happens. So it totally changed the semiconductor industry from the venture capital environment and to the supply chain. So many things have happened. So I'm very interested to understand nowadays from your point of view, if you look at United States, you look at Europe, you look at Asia, if in the future the synthetic biology or the biomanufacturing keep moving forward, what's their attitude and what's their environment will be look like? Because we have to compete and also work together under this kind of complicated environment. So where we follow the way of semiconductor happens, it make people's life very difficult, or in synthetic biology and biomanufacturing, the competition and working environment will be different. So that's something, as a newcomer in life science, I'll be very curious to understand from your panelist point of view. And also, I think Dr. Yue Shen mentioned a twist, and Drew, you mentioned a collaboration globally. I didn't say any panelists from Europe, but I do believe you can speak on their behalf to let the people like me from different areas to understand what will the life science or synthetic biology go in the future and what it will look like in a global scale. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful question. I'd be willing to offer a few comments from my own perspective and then invite anybody who'd like to contribute. One of the things I value about iGEM is the vibe in the room. The vibe, that's a California kind of word. And so you think about all the younger people who are here, and they're competing, but the competition has a particular type of flavor, which is bringing out the best in each other, I hope, right? And it's multilateral. There's a giving and getting, sharing embedded within iGEM. So there's different flavors of competition. You know, there's a competition that brings out the best in each other. There's competitions where you win, I lose. You survive, I die. Zero-sum competition. There's competition that converge. Like, you get over the finish line first, but I get there too, and we both win. Or there's a competition that diverges. I get ahead, and because I'm ahead, I get an advantage, and I race away from you. Right? So competition comes with different flavors. One of the best things I ever did within iGEM, tiny little thing, was setting up the medal system such that there were plenty of medals. You had to work really hard, but imagine if the Olympics, you know, in track and field, were anybody who broke the world record would get a gold medal. Anybody who broke the Olympic record got a silver medal. Anybody who broke their personal record got a bronze medal. You could have 10 gold medalists. It's still a competition. You're still working to be the best, but now you're cooperating, potentially. You could help each other. And so within your question and your experience in the semiconductor industry, I think is a significant amount of ambiguity that we're all navigating in a new way, and we're going to have to figure it out. For me, one of the things that's important is a planet that works, where things aren't going extinct, where there's opportunity for everybody, that things are working locally. And these are easy words to say out loud, but not trivial to make real. And somehow we're going to have to figure out how to figure it out. But I'm curious what each of you are seeing or feeling, if you're willing to share.
So it's my personal opinion, but depending on the stage of the development, research, and our commercialization, so I hope the fair competition in the academic research each other, but commercialization of the products or something business is a tough condition to some kind of negotiation with each other. So I think it's a combination of the academic research and also the negotiation with some countries, by countries or multi-countries. It's depending on the stage and the products or targets.
Would you like to add anything?
I think, look at like iGEM, we have different teams from around the world, and everyone is sharing their progress here and to fulfill all these different aspects of the application. I think this is, somehow it is competition. However, it also boosts the development for SynBio. So I think, there's might be one great opportunity at the moment is we just heard about the progress that every country is building their biofoundry. And they invest heavily in the biofoundry to do the infrastructure development. If for the biofoundry itself, instead of just developing individually, if you can really doing the network between the foundries and to make, and also that's one thing. And the other thing is if you can really develop a mission framework for collaboration around the grand challenges, that will actually force everyone to think about the same question and see how to make it work. And I think there will not be just one solution. There can be multiple solutions that we share the same goal to address the question. And in the end, everyone is actually benefit from that and figure out which technology, which solution that can fit our situation to solve the problem. So that's my point.
Well, I think the panelists really covered most of it. I think we all agree that collaboration is important, right? Rather than competing together, why don't we work together and achieve the outcomes that we want together? So in Singapore, it's a small country. We need to collaborate, right? We can't do anything. We can't do everything on our own, right? We see a lot of partnerships between Singapore entities as well as global companies. They come into Singapore to find such collaborations, right? So we have like Chinese companies like Wataru Bio had this earlier investment partnership with one of our institutes in Singapore to co-develop new bio solutions together. So this is just one example, right? We see many of these companies coming in to forge collaborations, and the idea is that they want to expand beyond their immediate neighborhood to look at new ideas, new applications, new partners, right? To I guess enhance what they are capable of and achieve higher potentials. Yeah. So I guess we all agreed on the point on collaboration.
Thank you. Other questions? Please.
Okay. Thank you. So we talked a lot about the importance of collaboration, especially between academia, industry, as well as government. And a problem that I see in Canada, there was a big promise of providing clean water towards Indigenous communities. I believe it was by 2023 or 2024. It has not happened. And so that requires the collaboration of all three of these industries. And with each one of your positions, I'm sure you've had to interact with all three respectively. How do we maximize that collaboration, that communication, or like what are some methods that you have seen that worked that all three of these bodies are able to meet those metrics that you set? Some examples from Singapore that you've made, or some examples that you've made in Japan. What are some things that have worked for you personally and that you think should be adopted universally?
Did you get the question? We're having a little hard time hearing. Could you just briefly restate your question?
Yes, of course. So how do we maximize the collaboration of academia, industry, and government when they work in varying speeds to meet the metrics and goals that are set by either international standards or your company standards? So from a company perspective, from an academia perspective, and from a government perspective, how do you manage your separate timelines to collaborate with each other? What are some things that have worked for you, have not worked for you, and what you think should be adopted universally to help make these goals occur?
I'll jump in really quick, and if, one of the things that's been helpful for me to learn is that there's different ways of organizing people. There's the .org, the .com, the .edu, and the .gov, the for-profit, the public benefit, the educational, and the public. So I think of this as a quadrant chart, and each quadrant has a superpower and a weakness. The superpower of a for-profit is you can organize people with money. The weakness is eventually you have to figure out how to make money, so it constrains what you can do. The superpower of a charity at .org is you can organize people with a dream. The weakness is you have to beg for money, right? The superpower of the government is convening and promulgating. The weakness of the government, at least in the United States, can be inefficiency on purpose. The superpower of academia is it rewards idiosyncratic innovation. That's the weakness of academia. You can't organize people because everybody's doing their own thing. And so when I look to trying to get things done that are bigger than me and bigger than any one type of organization, what I'm trying to do is run a process that takes the superpowers of each different type of entity and maps them to patch the weakness of the other. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't work. But for example, very hard within academia to develop new frameworks for property rights in biotechnology. We can do the scholarship, but you can't really implement there. And then you see Jenny Malloy can bring that forward through her work in Open Bioeconomy Lab and some other stuff, right? And so, not trying to force or expect a certain type of organization to deliver on something that it's not structurally good at doing has been helpful for me, and I'm looking forward to practicing that one a lot more. Anything you'd like to add?
So I think relatively easy to collaborate inside a nation, and so some kind of target decided in the nation, and to the international collaboration is one way to, I think. So it is important to know the other nations or countries' strategy or something, and learn each other to discuss.
Meichun, Chantal, Wataru, I want to do one last lightning round as we're closing out our panel. If you had a wish that you're asking the room to make true over the next 12 months, so that when we're back here in 12 months, something's true that's not true now. You can ask anything you want. Do you have any wishes? What would you wish for? You tell people what to do.
I'll start. I wish to make a genome synthesis as cheap, as fast, and as accurate as genome sequencing. So if I can nail to do that, maybe that really changed the way how we create.
So anybody who wants to help with that can be in touch with you. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Meichun.
I guess for me, I would wish that there would be more platforms for technology providers and end customers to come together to discuss what is needed. So I say this because based on all the conversations I have, what I'm hearing, it seems as though what is needed for this biotechnology to take off on a commercial scale is that, so I think a lesson that we have learned from the past is that sustainability on its own is not enough to make the customers willing to pay more, pay that premium, right? So this new products produced by biotechnology needs to have a new functional benefit, a superior functional benefit that customers are willing to pay for. So not just about sustainability, but additional functional benefit. And for producers to uncover that, there needs to be more interactions between the technology provider as well as the end customers to figure out what is that functional benefit that customers are willing to pay for. So I go back to the example I mentioned about Evonik, right? How they came out with that remolipids solution. So that's interesting because there's the additional functional benefit of being mild on the skin, which is very important for, say, dishwashing liquids. Right, so I think this functional benefit is very important to uncover, and I think more conversations need to happen for that too.
So you're wishing for examples of that?
More platforms for technology and users to convene, right, to uncover some of these new potentials.
Okay, thank you. Wataru.
Yeah. I wish bring the good result from Japanese project or funding, a big funding, and also discuss how to collaborate each other. And also, that time, so maybe companies representative to bring here. That's why, so I said, bring industry here is important to discuss.
How many companies should be here next year compared to how many more companies should be here? 10? 100? 1,000? What do you wish?
Yeah, so depending on the startups or some, including, there are many categories of the industry, but at least 5 big companies.
5 big companies?
Yep.
Okay, we're on it.
Not only Japan, but also globally.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you all very much. Please join me in thanking our panelists.